Adaptations provide enthusiastic storytellers with opportunities for direct homages as well as room to fill out gaps. When adapting stories from video games to motion pictures, the perspective immediately skews the audience's viewport. From the autonomous, player-controlled progression of a story to a speculative observer who has to follow predetermined momentum of a film or show, causes the storytellers to adjust the content to best fit the medium. The complex and multi-threaded story of a video game forces storytellers to identify what can, or can't, make the cut. We've already tackled how a video game like The Legend of Zelda: The Wind Waker may be summarized into a series pitch with a workshop genre, premise, and theme. However, with other Legend of Zelda titles, we have the unique opportunity to compare games already adapted into a new form: manga. Welcome to Workshopping Stories Adaptations. In this video, we'll be discussing how the manga for The Legend of Zelda: Majora's Mask had to consider which elements from the original material to keep and which to leave behind for its adaptation. We'll then see through some workshopping exercises how closely a screenplay would follow either the game, the manga, or both. So as with most of our videos, please note there will be spoilers for the game and manga adaptation of The Legend of Zelda: Majora's Mask. Majora's Mask felt like an art house piece when it first released in 2000 on the Nintendo 64. Having been based off of the massively successful Ocarina of Time that came out just 2 years prior. Yet from the start of the game, we weren't given a predictable sequel. The Link we follow has the appearances of a child, and is the same Link who time-traveled from his childhood to adulthood, only to be sent back to his past in Ocarina of Time. The memories of Link's harrowing adventure were still heavy in his heart, and themes in the story of Majora's Mask finds allegories for his growth. But the game doesn't always address the theme directly. The story instead follows the heartache and tribulations of strangers with recognizable faces in a distant, unknown land. Link essentially becomes their traveling angel, while he seeks to complete his own quest, to find a dear, lost friend. Even with this unique story, Majora's Mask leans into its video game medium. We get multiple story threads, and nearly all of them harken back to the premise of the main storyline. When searching for a lost friend, our hero is ambushed by a mischievous imp, sweeping him up into a 3-day time loop as he struggles to keep the moon from crashing into the land. The threads of the side quests, or smaller plots within the story, still feel like they make sense in the world of the game. The simplicity of helping a man find purpose in watching his baby chicks grow up toes the theme once more of growing up in the face of an uncertain future. Yet not all of these steps off of the main path of the tale truly find its roots in the premise of the story, at least not directly. These threads lead to a major component of the game: masks. The player has to use masks in order to complete the game. They aren't just interesting symbols or trophies won after epic battles. They're necessary tools Link has to wear in order to finish his adventure. They are important game mechanics, but also help demonstrate a theme of the story: that we all wear masks, and often have to change them out to fit the environments and stimuli we encounter day to day, or sometimes hour to hour. Heavy content where our protagonist and avatar is a child, but fitting for who we know Link is, and what we know he has already been through. There are 11 masks that are crucial to the completion of the game, a tall order for any adaptation to consider. The first mask Link dons is that of a Deku Scrub, a common being found in the game. However, he can only obtain it after being cursed and having his body changed into a Deku Scrub by the main antagonist of the game, Skull Kid. Link is forced to remain in this form until he can clear the first task of the game, finding and reclaiming his own lost treasure, an ocarina gifted by his friend Princess Zelda, and retrieving someone else's stolen artifact, Majora's Mask. It's worn by the main antagonist, Skull Kid. Skull Kid is someone known to Link from his adventures in Ocarina of Time. Like others of his kind, he's childlike, and aptly described as an imp. But there's something darker with Skull Kid now, and we can see it in his escalating pranks that range from annoying to cruel. It all comes back to the mask he wears. We get exposition from the man he stole it from, the Happy Mask salesman. But even this man seems like he's keeping crucial details from Link. Through most of the story, we get very little information to figure out who he is before he vanishes at the end of the game. And the mask is shrouded in mystery, the only hints of its origins coming from the Happy Mask salesman, who describes it as housing dark magic from a long-forgotten people. It may remind audiences of Breath of the Wild's Zonai and the Twilight of Twilight Princess. Then we learn of more masks as the introduction of the game progresses. Specifically, masks that have entrapped spirits of good and are powering evil entities spread across the four corners of the land. In order to access the temples that house these masks, the players will need 3 transformation masks. Link starts with the Deku mask, and he is able to obtain Aldola's remains in the form of a mask from the southern swamp. The next temple is in the mountains to the north, and requires the Goron mask to proceed. The player then defeats the monster there to acquire Goat's mask. To the west lies the Great Bay, and there, Link will need the Zora's mask to make his way to the temple to get Yorke's remains. Finally, the player will traverse the most difficult area of Termina. To the east, Ikana, the land of the dead. The player needs 3 additional masks before they can even make their way to Ikana, finally allowing them to get the last talisman, Twin Mold's mask. Link himself can collect and wear 24 masks in addition to the 4 he acquires from the remains, entrapping the souls of the true guardian spirits of the land. So how much of a role did the masks play in the manga adaptation, and how would a screenplay address these components? When the manga was published, the author team of Himekawa didn't actually have the full game to work off of. Even with limited exposure to the true story of Majora's Mask, they were able to capture the theme of the story and focus on Link's character. The emphasis is less on time travel, and Link only does so once purposefully in the manga's 3rd chapter. And they don't include every character or mask that's available in the game. The main 4 masks of the monster's remains are still used as locks for the true gods of Termina, and of course, the titular Majora's Mask, but there are only 2 additional masks used. One that keeps the identity of a character hidden, the other, the final transformation mask Link can obtain before the final battle. Instead, the aim is shifted to follow Link's journey closely as he rights the wrongs of Termina in a more traditional action-adventure tale. Link's main motivation seems to be very much the archetypal hero. His horse and ocarina were stolen by Skull Kid, which adds a very practical and actionable motive. But his intense dedication to saving Termina speaks more to Link's courage and truth as a hero. He genuinely feels like a traveling angel, someone who's been brought to Termina to save the people not just from great evils, but from pain. In the game, the main song players will use time and time again to progress is the Song of Healing. The song can ease the pain of the living, the dead, and those somewhere in between. Himekawa's themes lean heavily into healing and the power that compassion and doing the right thing by others has. The story is a bit more lighthearted compared to the overall drama we experienced in the video game. However, Himekawa is able to inject some of the unease of the game through their use of the Happy Mask salesman, as well as Link's final battle with Majora. We see healing among gods, among imps, among all creatures, people. Any being in this world is capable of doing terrible things, of suffering, but all are also offered the grace of healing. Another theme carries through Link, how his compassion can lend him aid in his most dire moments. Darmani's strength to defeat Goat, Mikau's wisdom to overcome Yorke, even the quiet presence of the spirit he took on in the form of the Deku mask. They all keep giving back to Link, as he keeps giving to a world strange to him, but also one that quickly becomes dear to him. and the effects of Link's efforts appear in the form of Cafe and Anju. Himekawa uses the leverage of Anju and Cafe's moving story to build up to the climax of the final battle. Gamers will hail Anju and Cafe's quest as one of the most difficult and intricate side stories to complete. It spans the course of the full 3 days and is nearly impossible to beat until the player has reached the end of the game. Link literally has to watch the final hours tick by before he can complete their story, and be able to rewind time so he isn't crushed by the moon. By having Cafe and Anju there in Link's final moments before he battles Majora, Himekawa are still honoring the character's deep connection to the original material. The incorporation of the final mask players get in the game is also satisfying. Having Anju and Cafe remark about the mask before Link dons it is the same build-up as the in-game text. You got the Fierce Deity's mask. Could this mask's dark powers be as bad as Majora? Try it on. A Fierce Deity's mask is what one may use to describe Majora's mask itself, and here, the game makes it a usable item. It also follows another fascinating theme of both Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask, childhood versus adulthood. Link throughout both games is consistently underestimated because of his age, and also painfully burdened with tasks no one should ask of a child. And we see this balance in Majora's Mask, someone who's still a child, but who has also lived too much of an adult life to ever fully have the safety net of childhood innocence. Skull Kid is similar to Link, possibly an immortal being from the Lost Woods who's an amalgamation of child and world-weary soul. Skull Kid deals with his trauma by causing trouble for others. Trouble that quickly turns dark and violent due to the influence of Majora's Mask. In the game, we can use the power of the Fierce Deity's mask, even with its ominous warning in its item description. Even Majora itself seems terrified of Link in this form, both in the game and in the manga. Majora is unresolved childlike rage. Fierce Deity is mature, controlled rage. Perhaps this idea is a nod to the Freudian concept of id and ego. But since it is Link donning the Fierce Deity mask, the destruction ends when Majora is defeated, because Link is a true hero. Again, we're at our premise. Our hero Link from the start of the story has completed his mission, to keep the moon from crashing into the land. But how we got to that point is depicted very differently in the game and the manga. These differences can help figure out a unique approach to a screenplay. Himekawa were impressive in how much of the thematic feelings of healing and staying true to the character of Link from Ocarina of Time they were able to imbue in their story. Maybe a screenplay could leverage the world building of the game, as well as its main mechanic of time travel, especially if the screenplay were a series. The other 18 masks Link can wear in the game all point to some kind of growth for Link, both in his actionable quest and his emotional storyline. Each of these masks can represent a culmination of the quest they're associated with, or simply provide ease of access to other quest lines for Link. However, we can look at how 3 masks at the end of the game may provide a template for how arcs in a screenplay adaptation may work out, how to honor the original game, and allow for opportunities to let a storyteller set up the theme and premise further. The final area of the game, Ikana, requires the most effort to access. Link must search not just Ikana, but other parts of Termina in order to collect 3 new masks. The masks themselves give Link new abilities, namely communication with the dead. And this fits in fully with the characteristics of the land of Ikana. These new masks aren't the only representations of death in the region. Link must wear masks of fallen heroes to scale the canyon in order to reach the final temple, his original transformation masks. The seeming finality of death doesn't hold much meaning in this part of Termina. And with one of the most prominent themes of Majora's Mask being healing, it's no surprise how Link's journey to helping others would extend to those already on a new plane of existence. Many theorists have posited that Majora's Mask is an allegory for death, that each region represents a concept within Kubler-Ross's model. Some say the game is about Link's death itself, though perhaps if we think back to the themes found in Ocarina of Time, it's more about the death of Link's childhood. And so, if we were to incorporate how Ikana is death, and how Link is faced with perhaps accepting the ending of something, as we near the end of his story, the side quests themselves should look at not just linking to the premise of the story, but the themes we've found so far. And healing is the main theme that stands out, both in the game and in the manga. So along with following a strong premise, we can also be sure to follow the theme of healing as the most prominent framework to set up a screenplay. Other great theorists have explored the Kubler-Ross theory much deeper in relation to Majora's Mask. But for the sake of our screenplay, let's instead focus on how we can show Link's growth from Ocarina until he reaches Ikana in Majora's Mask. Many traveling angel characters don't seem to change. Yet with Link, we can perhaps focus on how he's able to grow by not just letting his childhood innocence die. Instead, by the time Link reaches Ikana, he's struggling to reconcile all of these adult memories within the understanding of a child. And with each success over countless obstacles, Link can literally look down and see the mask of someone he's been able to heal along the way. And that perhaps now, as he reaches a pivotal moment of his own journey, he can use that same kindness and compassion for himself. He can nurture his childhood self and be his own protector. Because if he's able to do it for so many people, why can't he do it for himself? The journey also seems to be upended by the sheer amount of panic the ticking clock induces, and introducing the element to a screenplay would flip sequential storytelling on its head. But a good screenplay respects its audience. If the screenplay can show how Link is still growing and changing, much like towards the end of Ocarina of Time, Majora's Mask will present the most challenging form of time reversal Link has to contend with. All of his work and healing is forgotten. Link must always return to his point of arrival to Clocktown, where none of the characters remember him, and the healing he gave them is once again erased, and his good deeds undone. And if we follow the logic of the game, it's not just once. It could be considered that each temple Link must find will take 3 days. And if we're just looking at how he journeys through each region and its world building, Link has to set the clock back at least 5 times. Using the template of Ikana and how it incorporated the need for certain masks and their side quests, arcs, sequences, or scenes for each of these regions could do the same. A screenplay could explore how Link would maybe deal with time reversal, and how he grows with that difficult but necessary decision. The sequencing might feel complex, but Link's growth is the constant the audience will follow. The screenplay could then mirror how Link's ability to incorporate his traumas, and how he's able to cope and adapt with them, and how it clashes against Skull Kid's story progression. And a series would let an audience feel the weight of Link's journey, and vindication when he's able to actually heal this world he's come to save, as well as himself. Thank you for watching this episode of Workshopping Stories. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like. What's your favorite mask in the game? Let us know in the comments below. We'll be responding to some of your comments in an upcoming video. Thanks again for watching.